Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Chris Maragkakis of Simply Be Wellbeing. I'm a women's life coach, podcaster and speaker, and wellbeing provider. I'm also a mindfulness and meditation teacher. Welcome to Mindful Mutterings. Please like, share and subscribe, and thanks for listening. Hi, thanks for joining me. This week I want to talk about self-esteem because it's coming up in my work all the time and conversation with friends and family, and I think it's something that we can all relate to. So in essence, self-esteem is the confidence that we have in our own abilities. Now Maslow, who's a psychologist, defined it as containing strength and confidence, self-belief, personal and social acceptance and respect from others, and he said it was one of the basic needs that we had to have for us to be able to achieve self-actualization. And if you've ever seen his hierarchy of needs, it's like a little triangle. Self-actualization at the top and self-esteem is the one just underneath it. So I think I'm going to unpick self-esteem and what it is, because essentially there's three types of self-esteem. There's one which is overly high, which sees people lean towards arrogance and feeling superior. They may be self-indulgent, they may feel entitled, and possibly they overlook their own flaws while being openly critical of other people. The second type is low self-esteem, which shows up a lot, which is people who tend towards feeling inferior maybe, or they believe that other people might be better than them. They could find it difficult to accept compliments, might be afraid of failure, and they spend their mindset, or it's focused on their perceived weaknesses rather than the strengths that they have. And then we have the third type, which is actually healthy self-esteem. And maybe a better word for self-esteem would be self-worth, but anyway, we'll use the words that we've got. And so people who are in this healthy realm tend to have a more balanced view, and they have quite an accurate self-view. They're able to identify and accept their strengths and weaknesses, and they have realistic expectations for themselves and others. And when we have healthy self-esteem, we're more likely to feel confident and secure and less likely to need external validation. So this then gives us the opportunity to display individuality, and then we have less of a need to conform. We're quite confident to be different from other people and have the ability to debate our point of view and our lifestyle. Also, having a healthy self-esteem makes it easier to maintain positive relationships. We tend to have a more positive outlook on life, make better decisions, have advanced problem-solving skills, and find it easier to adopt a growth mindset, as people with a healthy self-esteem can see failure not as a negative, and in fact don't even really view failure as a thing. It's more something that didn't go the way they thought it, but it can be seen as an acceptable part of learning. And because of these core traits, people with healthy self-esteem are less likely to suffer from anxiety or depression or eating disorders and addiction. So, low self-esteem, let's look at this. It tends to be the most detrimental, as it has a negative impact on almost all areas of life, including school, workplace, relationships, decision making, and ultimately health. So how do we identify low self-esteem? Well, firstly, as always, and bearing in mind it is me, we need to be mindful of our thoughts and our behaviours so that we can begin to identify the ones that aren't working for us. When people are low in self-esteem, they tend to think in very black and white terms. It's either all good or it's all bad. Overgeneralization is something that they experience a lot of, so that if they have a negative experience once, then they just assume that every experience like that will be negative afterwards, or that things always go wrong for them. And emotions are often mistaken for facts. So if they're feeling maybe lazy or ugly one day, they'll identify with that feeling and they'll tend to adopt that belief, and therefore identify as being lazy or ugly, whereas actually emotions are just there to point out faults in our thinking. They're like signposts to tell us that we need to question and challenge the way that we're thinking about something. So they'll also might have a tendency to turn positive into a negative, as they've kind of looked or learned to look for what can go wrong with something and subconsciously try to head off failure, either by sabotaging something themselves or just not trying in case they fail. And it's kind of that idea that if they cause it to go wrong, then firstly they've proven the fact that everything always goes wrong for them, but also they've got in before someone else can, so they don't have to deal with that fear of failure. And also, people who have low self-esteem tend to personalise everything and accept responsibility for everything that goes wrong, whether it actually had anything to do with them or not. So, next follow on then is, how can we improve our self-esteem? Obviously, through mindful awareness, we can challenge and change the thoughts and behaviours that are undermining our security and confidence. And we need to start looking for the shades of grey in our thinking. We need to move away from this very polarised black and white ideas and start to look for the shades of grey, because we're only human. There is no rule book, there is no one size fits all. Everybody has a different way of processing information, everyone has different conditioning. And so we need to look to see where we can start to find some wriggle room in our thinking. And then we can begin to train ourselves to start looking for the positives. And they might be tiny. We might be really struggling to find a positive in the situation. But when we can, even if it's just the fact that we're still living, we can then start to reframe the way we respond to our thoughts. And that's what gives us the confidence and the control over our life. And the more confident and in control we feel, the more resilient we become. And the more resilient we become, the more self-esteem we have. And so we set off a really healthy cycle. So once we've begun the work on identifying, challenge and changing the thoughts, and this won't be an overnight miracle, we have to unlearn the conditioned behaviour that we've bought into for such a long time. But I don't want you to lose hope here. Like, anything that has been learned can be unlearned, and small consistent tweaks are far more successful than huge sweeping changes. And we can begin to stretch ourselves a little and then look for ways that we can begin to build on that and take risks and, like I said, build our resilience. So even if it feels that everything is overwhelming right now, don't lose hope. We can break down all the issues surrounding self-esteem, and we can start to find the tiniest little glimmers of light and work on those and build on those. And this then creates a layering approach. And before you know it, you've got a completely different mindset, and you're feeling so different from how you were before. So anyway, then once we've begun to do all that, we've built our resilience. And resilience is only the knowledge that we will survive life. I mean, it probably won't be very pretty sometimes. I mean, we might be hanging on by a thread, but we do know that we can survive it. And that's the key, really. As we build our resilience, as I said, that has such an impact on our self-worth, our self-esteem, our self-confidence, and then the way that we present in the world, and ultimately reduces our fear of failure and the way that we view everything. And so this is the key hook that I want you to take away from this. Small, consistent changes to the way that we challenge and change our thoughts will bring the best results. So each time we do this, like I said, we grow. And I'm not saying that when I want you to take more risk, I want you to suddenly start skydiving or something like that. But maybe next time you're invited out somewhere or you're asked to try something new, instead of going to your default response of no, maybe just kind of ask yourself, well, what's the worst that can happen? If you're actually not going to die, then maybe it's worth giving it a go. Maybe you could try a new food. Maybe you could try sitting in a different place. Maybe you could try walking a different way somewhere. Maybe you could try going out at a different time. It's trying to break down those controlling routines that we've put ourselves in. We've formed a little cage that we really struggle to get out of. And so these small, tiny little changes that, when we're successful with them, have a huge impact and grow our resilience. And often, like I said, if you're not actually going to die from these things, and the worst thing that could happen is maybe it doesn't go to plan, or maybe you feel a little bit silly, or you didn't like it, that's okay too, because often we learn. That's how we learn, and the worst thing that's happened is we've learned we don't like something. Well, that's okay. We could have ended up, it could have been the best thing that ever happened to us, and maybe it didn't go to plan, but that's also okay, because that will open up new opportunities. And often when things don't go to plan, the most interesting and best outcomes are what are now available to us. So it's all part of the process. I think the next thing is also really important, which is to stop comparing yourself with other people. We all have unique skills, and we can't possibly know what someone else is feeling or what they've been through. And we're looking at what we think is the perfect life or the perfect person, but actually we really have no way of knowing that, and they might be desperately unhappy, or they might just want what we have. And we can't compare ourselves to someone else because we're not the same person, and so that's really probably one of the most destructive things that we can do. And so I think to start looking at people as individuals, as the people that they are, with their own wants and needs, and looking at our wants and needs and our strengths and our weaknesses, that's actually far more useful than comparing ourselves to someone else and giving away our power and wanting to be like someone when we actually have no idea of what being that person is like. So then we need to start setting effective boundaries, because you don't have to do what everyone wants, and you don't have to put up with the way that you're being treated. But for some people, standing up for yourself can be overwhelming. I mean, we all know someone, and probably we're all guilty of it sometimes, where you go, oh, so-and-so will do that. Or maybe so-and-so doesn't want to do that. Maybe so-and-so would love to tell you to get lost, but they're just not brave enough at the moment, or they just never feel that there's an opportunity for them to be able to say that. Or maybe it's because we just don't ask them. So when we start to set these effective boundaries, we don't want to be drawing a hard line in the sand or having a confrontation, because that's very difficult to manage and can cause more stress than it's worth, and actually doesn't really resolve everyone, because everyone gets into defensive positions that cause more pain. Instead, it's really useful to have a set of responses that you can use to create some space for you to be able to think, or maybe get yourself out of a situation you don't want to be in. So things like, I'd love to do that, but I need to check my diary, or I know I can't do that day, but thanks for asking, it was very kind of you. Just give you enough time to be able to come away from the situation and think, do I want to do this? Do I want to do it in the way I'm being asked to do this? Do I have the time to do this? And if you don't, and I would strongly recommend that you don't lie about something. Don't go turn around and say, oh, I can't do it because I'm going here and there, because it will come back and bite you. But find an honest reason. Or maybe I can't do it this day because I've already got something on, or I can't do it this day because I'm feeling overwhelmed and I just don't want to be put in this position. But having these little phrases will give us the space to be able to think and then come up with a logical reason why we don't want to do something. And so when we've done that, we can then start looking at the people and the situations in our life that don't support us, and then we can let those ones start to slowly fade away. Maybe you start to get busy when they ask you out, or you make less of an effort to contact them, or you walk a different way somewhere so you don't necessarily bump into them, or maybe you change your routine so that you don't have to find yourself doing the things that they want you to do that aren't working out for you. There's no hard and fast rule, so do what you're comfortable with, and maybe try making little deals with yourself. If I try this today, then I can indulge in a lovely soak in the bath tonight, or if I manage to get through this situation, then I can buy myself a new mascara. Rewarding yourself for putting yourself out there is a really good motivation to start creating these boundaries and looking at what works for us and what doesn't work for us, because ultimately the only person that can make these changes is you. And sometimes we need a little bit of help to do that, but when we're being mindful and we're looking at the way our life is working, and we're looking at the people who we've probably had around all our life that maybe aren't helping us, maybe aren't very kind to us, then we can start to look at the ways that we can change the way we interact with them, or we can change the way we respond to them, or the amount of power they have over our life. And ultimately we can, as I said, let these people go because they're not helping us. And in doing that, we make space for the people that will help us and support us to come into our lives. And maybe it's time to get a coach, have some coaching, work with a life coach on changing your mindset. Look at how you view the past and how you're managing the future, and the fear that's coming in with that, or the anxiety or the overwhelm, or the way that your past is being allowed to control your future. And start to see how you can change that. Sometimes we need someone else's perspective to help us see what is plainly in front of our face. And so having a coach or someone be that person for you will help you to make the changes so much quicker. And as you become more aware of the way that you think, and as you become more conscious of the way that you're interacting with yourself and your thoughts and other people and the situations in your life, your confidence will quickly grow, your resilience and your self-esteem will build, and this will reduce your anxiety and your fear and your overwhelm. And also for a lot of us, there's a loss of identity that we've encountered over the years. We knew who we were when we were kids, but somehow that person's just got lost in life and other people's expectations and the weight of our own sense of failure or loss. And so it's time to bring that person back to life. And sometimes we just need a little help in doing that. So I guess all it leaves me to say really is, if this description of living with low self-esteem sounds familiar, let that understanding settle for a while and be kind to yourself, because that in itself is a massive turning point. The fact that you just identify that actually this could be what's causing my suffering, this could be what's causing me to feel so low. And then just let it settle for a while and see how it feels. And then each day maybe try and do something from this list of suggestions and slowly reclaim the confident and resilient person that you are under all that conditioning, as you slowly begin to take control of your life, one small, consistent step at a time. And as always, if you have any questions or you want to get in touch, then please do so via the website simplybe.org.uk. If you think this is your wake-up call and it's time to start working with a coach and you like the way that I sound, then please get in touch for a no obligation call and we'll have a little chat and see if we can make that happen. But whatever you do, please prioritise yourself and make time for you and start your journey on the rest of your life. As always, thank you for listening. Take care, and I hope you'll join me for the next one. Bye.